So hi and welcome to today's video. So today I'm going to be talking about the Karcher K4 Full Control, which is a pressure washer that I purchased a couple of months back. I'm going to be talking about the design and the features of it, as well as some of the pros and cons, how to maintain it and look after it so you keep it running for as long as possible. And also I purchased this from the Karcher Outlet and got it at a very discounted price, so I'm going to be talking about the experience with that as well. So since this was purchased from the Karcher Outlet, I didn't really have to do anything in terms of setup apart from plug the gun in, which was really handy. What it actually comes with is two different nozzles. You get a 5-metre cable that plugged into your mains and then a 6-metre hose length. But in terms of some of the more specific features of it, you get 130 bar max pressure, 420 litres per hour flow rate. The size of it is reasonably compact, particularly in comparison to the older generation Karcher that I had. So now let's take a look at the gun in a little bit more detail. Now it does have a button kind of underneath, which is what you press in to release and attach the hose. You also, on the actual trigger itself, have a button that you can press in which locks it. Of course, you can only lock it when it's off. You can't lock it when it's on to keep it on constantly, as that's a sort of safety measure that they all have. The gun is a little bit different to the older generation one that I used to have. So it has this kind of display on the top which allows you to see what kind of pressure that you're using at the time, and it has a little bit of an indication as to whether that's soft, medium or hard and what kind of surface you would use that for. For me, not something I use massively, as I kind of know roughly what pressure I need to be using, but it might give people a little bit more peace of mind if you are unsure what kind of pressure you should be using. So now talking about the different nozzles, you can attach and remove all these via a sort of push and twist mechanism, which is typical of the Karcher models. So the first nozzle I wanted to talk about, and the one that we primarily use for car cleaning, is the jet nozzle. So this one is adjustable and you can twist it quite close to the end, and this allows you to adjust to different pressure. So you can see on the top of the gun, it'll light up depending on which pressure you actually have. So this is the one that you'd recommend for car cleaning, and for most jobs really they could probably use this for. The other nozzle is what's called a dirt blaster, I think, and that has a slightly different design. You can see the spray pattern. Now this isn't something you would typically use for cars because it is quite powerful, and unfortunately on this model you can't adjust it. So you can't reduce the pressure to make it safer for cars. It's something you would typically use for other applications. So I wanted to get the disadvantages out of the way here as well. Now there are a few things that I don't really like about this model. My first complaint is that the hose isn't particularly long. Now 6 metres on this particular model, it's enough for my car, because if I put the pressure washer at the front of the car, I can get around it. However, I've got quite a small car, and when I work on anything slightly bigger, anything sort of larger than a small hatchback, I definitely do have to move the pressure washer throughout the process. It's not a disaster, but it's something to keep in mind. Another thing that I'm not a fan of to do with the hose is the fact that it really does have a tendency to twist. It's a bit annoying because of course when it twists it definitely reduces the length that you can extend it to. So you have to sort of go back and untwist it, and also if you don't notice it, you can risk it sort of slapping against the car and potentially causing damage, so you have to keep an eye on it not twisting up when you're using it. Another thing I'm not a massive fan of is that the gun is very long when you've got an attachment on it. You definitely have to use 2 hands if you want full control over it. It's not a disaster, but it's not something that I particularly like about the device. Another thing is that the push and twist mechanism that you use to actually attach and replace the nozzles requires a little bit of effort. It's nothing dramatic, but it's not particularly enjoyable to use, and I think there are better options out there, which I will talk about. It does, however, have some advantages. It's quite a powerful machine. Having that 130 bar max pressure makes it more than capable to do a car. You definitely don't need it as strong as that, you could probably get away with less, but it also means that you can use it for other applications like patio cleaning as well. And another thing that's really good about purchasing a Karcher model is because it's such a popular brand, there are loads of aftermarket upgrades that are really readily available. Now I also wanted to talk about maintaining the pressure washer and keeping it in good condition. This is something that's going to apply to whatever pressure washer you get. There are certain things you can do to help maximise the sort of lifespan and performance of it. Now there are 2 kind of things you need to keep in mind to do with turning it on and off, and firstly, when turning it on you need to make sure that A, it's full of water, and then also that it's not full of air. So there are a few different techniques of doing this. One that's pretty easy is to connect the pressure washer to your hose and make sure you've had it running for a little bit. You don't have to run it for ages, but make sure that there's some water in the machine, and then make sure the machine's turned off and pull the trigger. This helps to remove any air that's in the system, so it's going to stop it sort of spluttering and things like that. So also when turning it off, you need to make sure that there's no water in the system and to drain it properly. So one way you can do this is just to simply disconnect your hose from the pressure washer and turn on the gun, and you can sort of see it trickle out, and do this until there's no more water coming out, and this will ensure that the water's fully drained. It's a good idea to do this because leaving water in the system can potentially expose it to damage, particularly over winter. If the machine freezes, if any water freezes, it's going to expand and potentially crack some parts of the pressure washer. And also another point on maintenance is to do with snow foaming. Now there's some advice out there that if you want really thick foam, you can just use a smaller orifice in your foam cannon and it will produce thicker foam. Now whilst that is true, it can be at the expense of causing some damage to your pressure washer. So these smaller orifices, like the 1.1mm one that a lot of people talk about, they're designed for pressure washers that are particularly low powered, so anything that's around 90 to 110 bar is typically what they'd be used for. This being a 130 bar pressure washer, it isn't suitable to use an orifice so small. What it can do is cause sort of back pressure, which means that the pump inside the pressure washer is put under a lot of strain, and it can actually cause the gun to pulsate or even break completely. A lot of people are doing it and might not be noticing problems now, but it could be something that might become evident over continued use. So I don't think foam thickness is the be all and end all anyway, that's a separate issue, but I would be cautious of using that particular approach to get thicker foam. So I also wanted to talk about my experience using the Karcher Outlet, as I think it's a really good option if you want to purchase this machine for a heavily discounted price. Now these machines normally go for around £200 to £250 brand new, and I managed to purchase mine from the outlet for £130. I've had a good experience using the Karcher Outlet. So the previous pressure washer I owned was an older generation Karcher K4 that was purchased from the outlet as well, and we had that in the family for about 7 years before it finally threw in the towel a couple of months ago, which is the reason I purchased this one. So that's why I decided to go for it again here. Of course the condition isn't going to be brand new, so you can expect to notice a few different scuffs on there. That's something that I definitely noticed here, but nothing that was particularly bothering me. It didn't look brand new, but it didn't certainly look in bad condition. It also came pretty much fully assembled apart from the hose and the gun, which made life a lot easier to actually set up the machine. The only real disadvantage I would say is the warranty. Now if you purchase one of these brand new, it looks like you get around 24 months warranty. With the outlet you get a 6-month warranty. You can extend it to 12 months for I think around £11, that's up to you. But yeah, that's the only real drawback I would say, as long as the scuffs don't bother you. But after using it for probably a couple of months, you're going to get that kind of level of damage anyway. Now as far as I'm aware, that warranty only applies to domestic use. It doesn't extend to sort of commercial use if you're a professional detailer. However, that's quite typical of most pressure washers out there. There are some people that doubt the quality of these machines and haven't had good experiences with them. Of course, I can only talk about my own experience, having used that older generation one for 7 years, and it was a refurbished model before it finally threw in the towel. I was really happy just to purchase another one. But in terms of my overall thoughts, I do think this is a really good quality machine, and particularly when purchased on the Karcher Outlet, is at a really affordable price and is good value for money. I think there are a couple of drawbacks of it, but nothing that you can't overcome by using a couple of upgrades. So I actually purchased a Karcher quick release shotgun from Into Detailing quite a while ago and used it on my older generation Karcher, and of course put it on this model as well, and it just makes the whole process of using the pressure washer so much easier. The gun has much more control, and of course the quick release mechanism makes it a lot easier to change between using the regular nozzles and using the snow foam cannon. So I'll pop a link in the description to the review I've made of that, because I do think if you get this pressure washer, it's really good upgrade to make. You can also change the hose as well, which I know a lot of people have done. I've not done that at the moment, but it's something I might do in the future. So if you have enjoyed this video, it'd be brilliant if you could give it a like. Thanks very much for watching, and I'll see you next time.